So we all remember Amanda Bynes. I just realised I might not know how to pronounce her name. It's fine. Child actor, comedian. She was in some of those movies that are like really terrible but really great at the same time, and you want to watch like when you're sick or, you know, or hungover. She is The Man, What a Girl Wants, etc, etc. She also had The Amanda Show on Nickelodeon, which if you're my age, you might have grown up with. Not grown up with, it wasn't like it was the whole time, but you know, seen on Nickelodeon. She was a name in the Nickelodeon world. And like most celebrities or even like child actors, she has her up and downs throughout her career, even now in her personal life. That's not what we're really talking about today. It is crazy though to think how child stars go one way or the other. Like they either have like a not so great life after their like fame, or I've got makeup around this collar, or they go on and do amazing things. So Amanda was actually out of the spotlight for a long time, kind of doing her own thing, doing what she needed to do to get back to her health and mental health and personal relationships and everything like that. But recently she came back with a podcast. This is what I want to talk about today, which I actually think, right, for a child star who kind of went off a rails a little bit and then come back with a podcast, I think is a good move, right? Because let's be real, a lot of us are nosy. Not everyone, but a lot of us are pretty nosy. And we want to know the ins and outs of all the ups and downs that happened, you know, all the drama that we saw. Like Britney Spears' new book, right? We wanted to know everything. It's a really good book, by the way. If you haven't read it, I listened to it. But there's something kind of like powerful about a celebrity taking their own story and like their own, you know, talking about it themselves rather than us having to rely on like what the press are kind of like saying and what the press are going to be making up. So when Amanda Bynes was like doing a podcast, great, right? Really good idea. However, listen, let's start with actually talking about the actual podcast itself. It's an extremely short timeline because there's only one episode. So she hosted this podcast. I use the term hosted lightly, but it was called the Amanda Bynes and Paul Semensky podcast with this guy called Paul, not her current like partner Paul, a different Paul. Her partner's called Paul also, which I know can be confusing. But if the claims are true, the Paul that she did the podcast with is like scum off the earth. We'll get into that too. Now listen, I'm going to talk about this podcast and maybe give some feedback on how it could have been better also, and some little bits of drama behind it. Who am I to give feedback on a podcast? What do I know about podcasts? Wow, let me tell you, I had a podcast that went to #1 in the charts, iTunes charts, in different countries all around the world. I can provide a little bit of feedback. So they uploaded their first episode to YouTube. It was one of these visual podcasts, which is kind of just sitting around talking. So I don't know why people call them podcasts, because it's like, it's just a video now. It currently sits at 187,000 views from recording this video, and the channel itself has 6.4 thousand subs, which isn't great, really. It had a very awkward beginning.
Hi everyone, welcome to Amanda Bynes and Paul Semensky, the podcast. Today we are welcoming Dahlia Moth on our show.
Hi everyone. Nice.
Hello everybody. Hi, I am Paul. And welcome to our beautiful guest, Dahlia.
Hello. Hi. How are you guys doing today?
Oh my God, we are doing fabulously.
Yes.
Okay, so Amanda introduced like the show, right? And then introduced their guests, which is a tattoo artist. Who is a tattoo artist? I said it like they were a thing. And their guest is like, hey, hi. And then Paul kind of introduces himself and the guest again, making the guest awkwardly have to then again be like, hi.
Dahlia.
Hello. Hi. How are you guys doing today?
It's really uncomfortable to watch. It isn't very well thought out, you know? And it kind of seems throughout this podcast that this Paul guy kind of wants to take over a little bit and be like a main character within this podcast. I mean, Amanda Bynes is the celebrity here, not you. You know, let her take the lead a little bit. She's probably the main reason why a lot of people were tuning into it in the first place, let's be real.
So I wanted to do something that was a little bit better and beneficial for society. So I wanted to do tattooing.
That's super rad. So
That's incredible.
There isn't much conversation flowing, and the questions don't flow together. It's very strange and really uncomfortable to watch. And throughout, they're kind of both just holding their phones and like looking down at the phones, asking a question, and then going, oh, I love that.
It's not intimately affiliated with the world of tattoos. You mentioned like gothic realism.
That one close to my heart.
Oh, I love that too.
Absolutely love that.
Oh, closest friends would be my coworkers. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Is my motivator.
Love that.
That's great.
Whenever we had a guest on our podcast, right, we would give them a list of questions before they were going to come on. And then we would say, this is a list of questions. However, we take a very casual approach to it. We'll just talk and talk and talk and talk. We'll try and reach these points, but it's going to be a casual conversation. This seemed very point. I just noticed all this in the background. We'll ignore it. So it's not good. But in general, this guy just isn't very likable. He seems to want to take over. It seems very... Amanda sometimes seems a little bit annoyed. She gives him some looks. She has some that way glances, and it's a little bit like... kind of just gives off the impression that he's only doing this because he kind of just wanted to, like, a little bit of fame. You know, a lot of people have successful podcasts now, and I think he really wanted in on that. And maybe he wanted this to be like his full-time thing. This was his way into being full-time content creator podcaster. So this is where the timeline gets very quick and sudden, and kind of it all goes off the rails, right? So Amanda takes to TikTok and she thanks everyone for watching and talks about the success of their first episode.
I want to thank everyone who watched the first episode of the podcast. I had the best time filming it. It was so much fun. I also want to thank Dahlia Moth for being an amazing first guest on the show. Also, we are filming the next episode in 2 weeks. I hope you all tune into that episode as well. Thank you so much for the support. I love you all, and I hope you all have a beautiful night.
Okay, so stay with me. Amanda again takes to TikTok again, saying she doesn't want to do the podcast anymore.
So even though the podcast is doing really well and the response has been great, I am going to take a pause on it for now. We are not able to get the type of guests that I'd like on the show, like say Jack Harlow or Drake or Post Malone. So maybe one day, if we're able to get those types of guests on the show, we will resume the podcast. But for now, I'm taking a pause on it. Thank you everyone who watched. I really hope you enjoyed it. And that is all for now.
So her issue in her head, right, is that she really wanted more famous, more like A-list celebrities on her podcast, where currently she isn't really getting that kind of attention. But let's be real, from watching that first episode, the production is kind of messy, the editing's kind of messy, it's not done very well, it's a very awkward situation, it's just not great. I don't think anybody in that level of fame would want to come on this podcast, right? In the current way it sits. But again, she has another change of heart.
So I wanted to post something about how I felt last night after I made a post that we were pausing the podcast. I felt really sad and I was like in a really bad mood because the podcast was actually something that I was really looking forward to filming next week, and it was something that I was really happy and excited about. So I talked to a few friends and they all said to keep going. So we're going to continue the podcast and we are filming next Friday as planned. I think that podcasts just take time to grow, like to build a following. So I shouldn't have said what I said last night about like not getting the type of guests that we were looking forward to getting, because you never know, we might get them in the future. And the guests that we have lined up are actually really great. So I'm really looking forward to filming the next episode, and that's about it.
Okay, so they're back. They'll be filming again. It's good news, everyone. And she is right when she's talking about it. Things take a while to gain momentum. You don't just start something and think suddenly it's going to get millions and millions of views. However, I am a little bit surprised it doesn't have more views than it did, being Amanda Bynes and a lot of people kind of being nosy and kind of being like, oh, I wonder what she's doing and what she's up to and what she's like. So that is genuinely a surprise that it didn't get more views and more subscribers. For me, there's potential in this podcast. But again, the guests she's kind of getting don't seem to be, that type of level of fame she would have hoped for.
Well, the podcast guest gates of heaven have opened because we have found our next guest for the episode on Friday. His name is Nick Mendez, and he is the store manager of the Store Flight Club in LA. I cannot wait to interview him, and we'll be posting the episode on Spotify on Friday.
She's super excited about this guest who is a store manager. Now listen, a little thought in my mind, right? Imagine you are an influencer, not a celebrity, just an influencer. Amanda Bynes reaches out to you, say you're my age, and is like, I'm doing a podcast. Would you like to come on the podcast? I would be like, yes. yes. But I'd be like, Amanda Bynes, oh my God, yeah, sure, you know? So she could get influencers on her podcast in loads of different aspects. Doesn't have to be beauty influencers, it could be anyone who would happily go on her podcast, right? Let's say over 1 million subscribers or 1 million followers on TikTok. She in turn gets their viewers to come and watch her podcast, etc., etc. They can become long-term viewers of her podcast. It doesn't have to be like A-list celebrities. So they have this guest lined up. She's ready to go. They're going to record next Friday or whatever it was, shortly after she posts this on her TikTok. The first episode of my podcast did really well. I was actually surprised and of course was going to keep going after friends and family encouraged me to. After thinking about it though, I would rather get my manicurist license and have a consistent job. I'm going to follow that path instead. Thank you for following my journey. Fine. Cool. That's good. A consistent job. She doesn't want to do the podcast. She's not into it. She wants to be a manicurist. Great job. Love it. It's a job you can keep learning things, progressing in, changing things up. It's creative. You know, I think that's a really good thing. I'm happy for her. I'm happy for her. Great news. Because it gets her away from her allegedly dog murdering co-host. Listen, trigger warning, what I just said. Allegedly, this is all allegedly, a user took to TikTok. We're talking about Paul Zemensky now. I can't even remember what his name is. I think it was that. A user took to TikTok to kind of like blast his name and reveal the truth about him, right? After she found out that he was doing this like co-host situation with Amanda Bynes, she was like, you can't give this guy the spotlight at all. She made this wild claim, we don't know if it's true or not, that Paul had sacrificed her dog while she was away to the blood moon.
Paul's ex-roommate and friend of 7 years, Christina, came forward to shed light on who Paul Szymanski really is. Check this out.
Listen, we need to get this out there. The guy that Amanda has made this podcast with is not a scientist. He's claiming to her that he's a scientist. He is my old roommate. He is a sociopath. He had lied to me, said he was a scientist for like over 7 years. We were friends. I would be his cat sitter and dog sitter when he would go out of town for over 7 years. And then one day we moved in together. I went out of town and he sacrificed my dog's life, unalived him to a blood moon or something, and then deleted all the footage and then lied about it for months and months and months, and then left, like literally went outside for a cigarette and left the moment that I got into the security footage because he knew there was videos of him doing it on there. This is a dog that he bought. He stole my money. I didn't know that at the time, but yeah, he bought this dog and literally left her.
I don't know what that means. No idea. I do not care. But let me tell you something, and I'm being dead serious now. I would go to jail. I would go to prison. I would do life for my dogs. No joke. I mean it, like deadly serious. If I had found out that somebody has sacrificed my dog to anything, killed them, murdered them, to a blood moon, I'm sure I could find something to sacrifice that human to. Deadly serious. But that's just me. So this person claims that there is footage of Paul doing this, him doing the sacrifice, everything like that, but claims that they deleted the footage and that he is in fact getting away with this thing that he did because his dad is a very powerful lawyer. How true that is? We don't know. So this user on TikTok managed to actually get a statement from Paul on this situation.
I am sure we have all seen this stitch by now, and I was able to get a statement from Paul Szymanski about the situation. I'm going to start with this statement, but if you don't know what's going on, just keep watching the video. So he sent me a screenshot of what he said publicly first, and he said, obviously her take is not an honest or accurate portrayal of the situation in any way. I wish Christina well, and I hope she can get help. Christina deserves love and respect, and I'm so sorry that she felt the need to resort to lying to get that. I don't feel I need to elaborate further. This is slander and can easily be disproven by those that were present for the situation. And to me, he said, I feel awful for Christina. She is very sick. I hope she gets help moving forward. It saddens me greatly that she is resorting to lying like this to attain attention, and I hope she can find peace. I would like to share additional details, but honestly, I don't want to stoop to her level and share details that may harm her. She has had a rough go of it in life, and I don't want to contribute to that further. And then he said, if I have to elaborate further in the future, I will, I suppose, because exactly none of what she said in that video is true. But I honestly just feel really awful for her that she feels like she has to spread such lies. It makes me really sad. I don't think she's a bad person, but she is really, really sick. I tried so hard to help her, But obviously, that didn't pan out. I hope she finds good people and can find satisfaction in her life.
I really do hope that Amanda isn't affected by this podcast situation, this guy, and she has an amazing career doing nails, doing whatever it is she wants to do. Genuinely, I mean that. But listen, should she ever want to go back to the podcasting career, I had a little thought, a little brainstorm of what she could do. You don't need famous guests. We all start from somewhere, right? You don't need anyone famous. You don't need all this. Your normal setup, absolutely fine. Picture this with me, right? It's just Amanda and perhaps a producer off screen, a friend who is mic'd as well, but you don't really see them, so you can have a little bit of a backwards and forwards with them. A little bit of a laugh. So let's go off their first guest, right? And say that the first guest on this Just the Amanda show, you could call it the Amanda show if she's legally able to do that, is the tattoo artist, right? Amanda's face to face with her guest. She doesn't know them. They're talking like normal. She isn't told anything before, but here's the fun in the podcast. Amanda has to ask this person questions to figure out their profession, right? She has 5 to 10 minutes to figure out what they do for work. It's a cute game, and then we can guess too. We can guess along with them, like, oh, they kind of look like this, they kind of don't look like that, because looks can be deceiving, right? So either she guesses it right within that time frame or she doesn't, right? But at the end of it, the person says, this is my job, I'm a tattoo artist, then leads on to the conversation. Amanda can ask whatever the hell she wants. It's her podcast. She can say to this person some fun questions, some kooky questions. Have you ever done a tattoo that no one has liked? What happened? Have you ever tattooed someone's penis? You know, what was that like? She can ask all these juicy questions that we might want to ask people in certain positions. I would have a lot of questions for a tattoo artist, you know? Vets. Even if she had a store manager on, have you ever had anyone shit in your store? That's happened to me before. I haven't done it, someone else did it. Have you ever had to fire someone? Did anyone ever steal from your thing? But the producer can get these guests and kind of ask them a little bit of questions before to know that they have like an interesting life within that profession. That would be cute. Someone do that. Does that exist already? I don't know. This podcast could have been great. It could have been something really good. Unfortunately, she chose the wrong host who had this background and nobody really liked them and just came across really unlikable, as I don't know them, but they just come across really unlikable as a person. It was very awkward to watch. It just was not produced correctly, if at all. She could have another go at it, but I do hope she's happy doing her nails or doing whatever she wants to do. I just hope she can live a life that is stress-free. Okay, let me know your opinions on this down below, and we'll speak very, very soon. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.